And there's been a lot of news that has come out recently. We're not going to necessarily speak about that. No matter what side of the political divide you stand on, it's pretty momentous to have a woman of color to be nominated as, or not nominated, to be picked as a vice presidential running mate. So, just kind of noticing and calling out that moment in history right now. But that's not why we're here today. But just wanted to kind of note that. I felt a bit remiss if I didn't note that. So I'm just looking at everyone who's here. With people all over the world here right now, and what that tells us most immediately is this idea of overcoming anxiety naturally. That there's a lot of it right now, all over the world, and there's also good reason why there is. And so, noticing people here right now from Portugal and Europe. Welcome, late for you. I know we won't have a lot of Europeans or Central Europeans this hour. But welcome, Adelaide. So wonderful you're here. We have Northern California and Minnesota and Pennsylvania. So East Coast, West Coast, and Michigan, and Georgia and Maryland. So we have a lot all over the United States, and Florida and Texas and the South. And there's a lot of reason for in Texas to be feeling that way. Colleen from who's been on retreat with me, beautiful in the past. Welcome, Vermont, where most of my family is from, and Southern California and the East Coast, and right here in the backyard in LA, and really from all over the world, in Mexico City, and up in Canada, and again in the South, and in Houston, Texas, and a lot of stress going on right now, a lot of difficulty with sleep. I'm noticing in some of these comments, and Michigan. So just knowing that as I'm saying this and noting this, that you're not alone, right? You're seeing that we are even here on this event right now, we are a collective of human beings who all want the same thing: to feel cared about, to feel understood, to feel a sense of belonging. And I want you to know that you belong here right now. And, we have Cynthia here. And thank you so much for this 21-day program. And for making it so affordable. Wonderful. I haven't even mentioned that yet. You are my mindfulness crush. Thank you, Cynthia. Appreciate that. Alabama and North Hollywood, and really all over this. Hundreds of people right now from all over the world, all interested in how what do we need to know to overcome anxiety naturally. And I just want to say, just right up front, that even what we're going to talk about here today is not me saying that medication is bad and we should only go towards natural things. But I will say that what we're doing today it is going to give you a sense that there are things I can understand and there are things I can know to regain a sense of personal control. There's some fundamental understandings of ways that I can relate to things and be in this world. And so I'm going to talk about those things. You're going to see and feel some, different experiences just based on what we're going to do today. You're going to hopefully see and understand some insights as well. It's summer here in, where I live on this side of the world. And so people have kind of loosened up a bit, and I also live in LA, which is, as far as the pandemic is concerned, is sort of, considered to be a hot spot. Kids are, on the precipice already going back to school or are about to go back to school. So if you're in that situation, if you're a parent, no doubt you might have stress about that. Some parts of the world are doing better than others. Some people are enjoying the warm, the weather that's out there. Some people need to stay inside because of the fear of the vulnerability really that's there. And the truth is, right now, it's hard really to know what's happening. We don't really know. And so there's a level of uncertainty, and our brain is wired to go a little overactive when there's uncertainty, because it's really wired for certainty. That's why we get caught in like old patterns over and over again, because we're wired for certainty. And so now what's happening is there's this like anxious fatigue that's starting to settle in. I use those together. Have you noticed that? There's like an anxious fatigue that's there. It's as if there's a point where, and at times this may be hitting you at some points more than others, but there's like this wall that that many people, are hitting from time to time, and there's a anxiety underneath it, a fear underneath it, and there's also a fatigue, around it. There's new research that you might have heard about that's come out recently that's been on this, on this thing, like what's happening. And I thought this was interesting, as we're getting into this, for you to know if you didn't already know this. So according to the National Center for Health Statistics, in the past, roughly 1 in 12 Americans reported symptoms of an anxiety disorder, what would be classified as an anxiety disorder this time last year. Now it's 1 in 3. So I want you to know that if you're feeling a kick up of anxiety, a kick up of fear that's there, that you're really not alone, and there's reasons for it, and we'll talk about it here. Another interesting thing just to kind of note as we're in this era of this really arousing even greater awareness around racial justice and social justice, that when Kaiser put out a poll, they found that 53% of Americans feel like the pandemic is taking a toll on their mental health, but in the African-American community, that jumps up to 68%. And so, just aware of how this affects different people differently. But we're all going through really something together. And certainly you're on this call right now for that particular reason. So I'm gonna, in the next hour, we're gonna do a couple of things. I'm gonna share with you some really key foundations that's been enormously helpful to me personally, and also professionally as a psychologist and a mindfulness educator. And then I'm also going to give us some things to kind of work with. So like today, even just if you're just here for this today, you'll have something to walk away with that you can begin to understand things differently and implement them really immediately. And that's my goal for you. That's my goal for you today and for us. And in light of current events, I'll also be noting that that there is that today actually just released, really just almost now, is this 21 days to overcoming anxiety naturally. And I'll mention more about that, and then we'll do some Q&A as well, because there's some questions that have come in. So by the way, whether you come into the 21-day program or not, is just this alone is going to be really supportive for you. And I'm going to take what we do in here, and I'm going to edit out this introductory piece, and I'm going to put it right up front in the, as a extra thing to resource within that 21-day program. So just want to share some facts. We know uncertainty is looming in the air right now. We know, I just gave you statistics on, how it's impacting people's mental health and sense of mental dis-ease. We know that mental dis-ease, that stress, the increased anxiety loops in with different types of issues, like feeling more depressed, being more snappy with the people around us. So all of a sudden it creates relational issues and relational stress. And that emotional stress that we feel also creates, our heart to race, and creates maybe higher blood pressure, and can create cellular inflammation. And then we get pain. So it's really important to understand certain skills to be able to dial down the mind a little bit, and be able to use our mind to be more skillful with our bodies. And there's short practices that we can do on a regular basis that can be enormously helpful for us. In 2006, I did a study, a national research study. And if you know some of my work, you might know this study. It was done in it was published in the Journal of Clinical Psychology. And I took people all over the United States anyway. And I randomly assigned them to a couple different groups. And one group was to just do a brief short practice where they were just kind of noting how they were feeling physically, what was here emotionally, what was here mentally. And if you ever join our Sunday morning meditations, which are just free for everyone to join, by the way, it's just a service we have for the world to join together and to collect together to reground and refocus, that we offer through the Mindful Living Collective, is you'll notice in the beginning, I always do this practice called a mindful check-in. And the reason is to be able to pause and notice our body and notice how we're feeling emotionally and kind of name it, noticing the quality of our attention, is we get out of the stream of autopilot by doing that. It's just a practice, just a simple practice to do. So I asked them to do that, and then I asked them to consider an object, a physical object or a mental object, something like that, that was something meaningful to them. This could have been a tree in nature, could have been a family heirloom, could have been like the clouds. They have visualization of the clouds in their mind. So they became present, they settled in physically. And as I'm even speaking, you can just kind of do this right now. And so you're just feeling your body for a minute. You're feeling the connection of your body to the chair or the ground or whatever it is beneath your feet. And you're noticing how your body's feeling. And I'll get into what the next step of this is in a moment. But just for right now, just this. And then just naming how you're feeling emotionally. A friend of mine and mentor, many of you who know Dan Siegel, came up with a great phrase, and he's really good with catchy phrases. And he said, name it to tame it. So that's the idea, is that you're naming what's here. And the idea is that then what's happening is we're bringing blood flow to our prefrontal cortex, which then is involved with emotion regulation and impulse control. We want to bring blood there. And then what we're doing is we're just noticing the quality of our attention and maybe setting an intention to pay attention. And so I had them do this for 5 minutes a day, for 5 days a week, for 3 weeks. That's it. That's all. 5 minutes a day for 5 days a week for 3 weeks. And what they found was, after that time, and then I did a 6-week follow-up. After that time, in the 6-week follow-up, there was statistically significant results in stress reduction, amplification on really deep scales of well-being, not the surface scales that we see, which are like just how are you feeling and how's your stress, is basically those surface skills. This was kind of looking more at a sense of purpose and meaning and connection, and so there were statistically significant results in that. And then what was interesting is I then interviewed many of these people to find out what their experience was. Like, what was it? What was it about this very simple practice, and done consistently over time, over a short period of time, a few weeks, let's say 21 days, right? And so a short period of time, what was it that they were experiencing? And at the epicenter of it, the most common experience people were experiencing was one of connection. So what's so painful about the pandemic right now, and what's leading to such increased anxiety, aside from the uncertainty of it, is the disconnection that many of us are feeling. And so here's where the next phase is, that we also need, and it's a fact, and there's a ton of research behind this. So my research showed this, but also there's a ton of research that shows connection, feeling connected, is at the ground for feeling well and resilient. And that makes sense. Like, think of a metaphor for a second. If you think of a net or a strong spider web, but a net, right? If you fall, the net's going to catch you. And so connection creates a net for feeling emotionally safe, to feel if I fall, I'll be caught. So a sense of safety and security, and the bottom of our brain really wants that sense of safety and security. It wants to feel secure. Yeah. I mean, that's at the foundation of it all. It's where we're wired to survive, not be happy. So those are the 3 important facts around the reality of our uncertainty, the reality of that there's small things that we can do that make an impact on our well-being and resiliency, and that connection is at the epicenter of it. So I want to just share a short story. My wife and I shared this before. If you've been on a called me, but it was quite a while ago when this pandemic first broke. My wife and I were, before it even broke, my wife and I went on a short trip. We were allowed to. We have 3 young boys, and my sister took them for the weekend. It was like this huge gift of time, and we went up to Northern California and took some time away to just kind of be just with each other. What a gift! And so, and then this pandemic broke, and so when it broke, we were like, "Oh my God, should we get back?" I mean, it really escalated very quickly. Should we be getting back? Should we be? And all of a sudden I noticed my thoughts started kind of really worrying about like, well, what if California shuts down? And what if I'm not able to drive back? And what if? And I noticed that I was starting to get really tense, and we were looking at the news constantly, and there's all we were talking about. And I noticed myself feeling really anxious. And so I paused in that moment because I noticed this. And I want to explain to you what happened. Okay. I'm going to get up for a second. Maybe you can still see me. Let's see. Yeah, you can see me good enough, right? Okay, you won't need to see my head for this anyway. We're going to move this out of the way. So here's what happened. What happens to us in any given moment, and might be blurry, I don't know. Come back. Okay, there it goes. What happens to us at any given moment is there's a cycle that I call an anxious loop. Okay? This is a conditioned reaction that we have no control over when it hits us and when it swells up. So what happens is an event happens. This could be an internal event or something external, meaning it could be a feeling that arises, it could be a thought that arises, it could be some kind of cue or trigger that arises. And what happens is we have an interpretation. Let's just call it a thought. Oh my God, is this going to be like this forever? What if this is like this forever? This is going to be unbearable. I can't handle this. Maybe someone else can handle this, but not someone like me. Right? I'm not safe. So I'm going to die. Something like that's going to happen. Then we start having an emotion. Right? Then we start having that emotion comes with it a sensation. And that sensation then comes with an action. Call this the anxious loop. This is going to be enormously helpful in a moment. Okay? Again, you don't need to see my head, so don't worry about it. My head's just completely unimportant. And by the way, just a short moment, my teachers, when I was in middle school, or it was junior high back then, when I was in junior high, came to my parents and said, you really need to get your son computers had just like kind of come out and people were starting to get them in their house or whatever. You need to get him a computer because we really can't read his handwriting. And if he could just get a computer, he might be able to really express himself better. So anyway, if you can't read this, then you're in the same place as my teacher. So here's what happens for me. I was up in Northern California. This pandemic hit. I had this thought. Oh my God, what if I'm not able to get back to my kids and we get stuck out here? What if it's like quarantined in this place? This wasn't before quarantining was ever, was even happening yet in that moment. My mind went to this place. And the emotion was fear, anxiety. And what happened was my body started to tense. My heart rate started going up. My stomach started to kind of like, tense up too. And I started to sweat. And then what I started to do was check the news, constantly doing that. Meanwhile, there was an ocean in front of me. There was my wife, who I just really wanted to spend time with, connecting in front of me. But this is where my brain was telling me to pay attention, was this stuff. Which after I was checking, seeing all the news, the thought was like, oh my God, we're going to hell in a handbasket. I don't think we're going to survive this. Like what's going to, so this is all happening very quickly, right? So what happens is when we're in this conditioned reaction, what's going on is the blood flow is retreating back to the limbic center of the brain. Remember, this part right here is involved with emotion regulation and impulse control, executive function. It's the part that kind of has perspective. It's what looks down onto this emotional center, this amygdala, let's say, in the center of our brain, and says like, "Hey, man, you're really overreacting. Like, let me show you kind of. Let's just do some things for you to chill out, and then we can kind of get perspective on this situation." But I didn't have that because the blood flow had retreated there. How do we get the blood flow back to the front of our brain? So, study out of UCLA showed people a couple different images of a woman feeling really afraid and a man feeling really angry. And to one group, they said, they just showed them the images and they showed a lot of activity in the amygdala, right? Not a lot in the prefrontal cortex. They showed the same images to another group and they said, can you tell us how they're feeling? And so they said, oh, she's feeling really scared. He's feeling really angry. And they showed a lot more activity in the prefrontal region, which is where we want it. We need that strength up there to be able to look down on the amygdala and say, what is it that I'm actually needing right now? What's happening? I want some perspective. I need some space. I need to get into that space between stimulus and response, which Viktor Frankl talks about. I need to widen that space where there's more possibility. I'm more aware of the choice points that are there and also the potential for growth. So I took a deep breath. I named it. Oh my God, we're really caught in this anxious frenzy right now. That's happening right now. And I did something really powerful, which I'm going to share with you in a moment, that to me is the most impactful, immediate thing that you can do as an everyday practice to be able to come down from your anxious mind and back into a place of greater grounding and balance. So hang on to this for a second, this anxious loop. So one of the things we want to get better at naming is this anxious loop. And so I lead before pandemic, but workshops and do talks all around the country in different parts of the world. And this thing, and in Uncovering Happiness, I call this the depression loop. It's very similar. And this, being able to name this and write out what your loop is so you can get some space from it, is one of the single most important things you can begin as a foundation. And if your mind's saying like, you know what, that's not new, I kind of learned that before, then what we want to do, that may not be, but what I want to do is just bring it top of mind for you. So you can kind of bring it back into your awareness, because it's really, really powerful, right? Really what we want to do, if I kind of swing this around again for a second, is we want to be like somebody here looking at this anxious loop. I was in it. We don't want to be in the loop. We're going to be in the loop sometimes, but we want to be able to take note of it and get in it, because this is that space which we're going to say there's more choice in it. Okay? More choice, possibility, freedom. Don't worry if you can't see or read what I'm doing right there. So that's one of the initial things that's really important. So for you right now, one thing that you're going to kind of take away from here is, just in this moment, is you're going to want to take this, and you can do it while we're talking. It's perfectly fine, or you can kind of write it into the chat. That's okay too. But you want to kind of map that out for yourself. What's my anxious loop? So when I'm caught in this, what are my thoughts that I typically have? What are the emotions that are there? And feel free to break them out. There's fear, there's sadness, there's overwhelm, there's, this. What are the sensations that are involved? Well, I get my heart starts beating fast and I start sweating and I feel tightness in my chest, or my stomach starts to cramp, or my breathing gets really labored, something like that, right? Over my head starts to swell. What are your sensations? And then what do you do? What's the behavior what's your go-to behavior that you do to typically soothe yourself in that moment? The number one behavior that we typically do, and you might think of it as a behavior or not, is we think more. That's what I call our number one bad habit, thinking. And so one of the things I talk about in the 21-day program is this way of kind of working with the thoughts, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the another thing that I talk about, which is right up front in the beginning, which is the power of recognizing that anxiety and fear is a physiological response, meaning it lives in your body. Your body is a feedback loop with the thoughts that are there. They're going back and forth, keeping the anxiety around. So the intervention for that is typically, even though what we think the intervention is here with the thoughts, that's where the brain thinks the intervention is. That's where the first place it's going to go is, it's going to go to these thoughts. It's going to say, what's the worst case scenario? What, how do I get out of this? Like, how do I get out of this anxiety that's here? I'm getting into a state of panic. Like, how do I get out of this? What if I can't get out of it? What's going to happen? Maybe I'll never be able to get out of it. That's where the brain goes. That's the wrong place. It doesn't help. Typically, what we want to do is we really want to go to the body. The body is having a physiological response. I just did an interview with a magazine this morning and gave them this exact same understanding. The body's having a physiological response. That's a fact. The thought that the world's going to hell in a handbasket, or the thought that I'm never going to be able to get over this anxiety, or the thought that I'm not going to be able to stay focused enough at my job and I'm going to lose my job and then I'm going to be homeless on the street, is not a fact. This is a glass of water. That's generally agreed upon by most people. That's what a fact is. Thoughts are not facts. Even the ones that say they are not facts. They can be checked out and investigated, but they're not facts. Your heart beating fast, your tension in your body that's happening with the anxiety, that's a fact for sure. 100%. We can measure it. Absolutely. So that's where we want to go. We want to go to what we do know, not what our brain is telling us, which, by the way, I'm writing a new book right now called Ultimate Freedom, and it's all about fear and overcoming fear. And one of the terms I picked out and borrowed from Colbert was this term of truthiness. So truthiness, if you've heard it, truthiness is this thought that, and it's in the dictionary, and truthiness is a thought that feels true. It feels true. And the way the brain works is the more emotional you are, the more convincing the thought is going to seem. Because if a car is driving down the street and you're in the middle of the street and your brain says, get out of the way, you're going to get hit by the car, and you feel fear, you want to believe what your brain says. So we're wired that way. However, when you're feeling a lot of anxiety, you're going to believe these thoughts that are there, and they're not even facts. They're truthy, though. Truthiness. Those are thoughts that appear to be true, or they feel true, but once you look at them, they're not necessarily facts. So we want to go after that. So our nervous system. So here's the most immediate way, and I say this is a practice. It's important to understand this is a practice versus like you do this and that's it. No more anxiety forever. Life doesn't work that way. Anybody that tells you that it does, I got the thing for you and you do this today and all your worries will be gone, that's when you turn around and move and walk in the other direction. Life is a practice. That's just a reality. And that's okay to understand that because we're all in it together. So this thing about our body going into this fight, flight, freeze response, tensing, throwing blood to the muscles in order for us to either run or fight, or making us limp, because we're freezing because our brain says it's hopeless, so we might as well lie down so we don't get eaten by the tiger, because it thinks we're dead, so it'll just leave. What we want to do is send the message to our brain the opposite. So our body's tensing, it's bracing. What we want to do is recognize that I'm in the anxious loop right now. Just name it to tame it. First step, name it. We recognize it. Then what we want to start to do is a second step called release. How do we do that? Well, we just start with our body to begin with. So we start with our body. Where is it tensing? And then we just begin to soften those areas of our body where it's tensing, whether it's the back or the chest. We want to actively focus on softening. And if it's not softening, then actively stretching those areas of the body. We want to be able to actively open those up. So we send the message to the brain that of openness and not constriction and rigid closeness, which is what anxiety is. So we're working through our body to begin with to be able to shift from the anxious loop. Okay, so that's the first thing. Where do you brace? Where do I brace? So I'll be on the lookout today, tomorrow. Where do I notice bracing? Is it the moment I wake up in the morning? Are there certain areas or are there certain contexts that I brace more in, at certain times of day I'm bracing more? Am I bracing all day? And then so how do I weave in a little bit more openness and stretching during the day? We have to work through our bodies to begin with. That is one of the most important things to understand. So again, with release, another thing to release, deep breathing. What does that do? So deep breathing opens up our body and expands our belly, which is again an opening. That's why people recommend deep breathing, not to make anxiety disappear like that, but as a practice of getting your body used to an anti-anxiety response, a practice. Another thing, think about this. Some people practice singing. Why would you practice singing as an anti-anxiety response? Because what are you doing when you're singing? You're opening your vocal cords, right? You're sending your brain the exact opposite of constriction. You're opening instead. So we're just talking about ways to begin to work through our body to do the exact opposite of what anxiety is telling our body to do, which is close down, get rigid, get the blood in our muscles, get ready to fight, flight, or freeze. One more thing that I'll give as a kind of a release exercise through the body is shaking. Have you ever done this before? If you've ever done something like Qigong or something like that, you're shaking. You're literally, you're literally shaking because what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to release the feeling that's there. So first we recognize that we're in this anxious loop, right? Thoughts, emotions, sensations, behaviors. I know this thing. It's a conditioned reaction. It's not my fault. It just kind of came. The center of my brain is way faster than the prefrontal cortex, the more evolved area of our brain, the area that has perspective. So it's always going to like come quicker. Not my fault. I didn't choose it. But once I become aware of it, I can start working with my practice. That I'm caught in this anxious loop and I can start relating to it differently in these particular ways. If you practice with mindfulness meditation and you feel like, wow, I really got this mindfulness meditation practice and I really want to just practice letting it be and studying the sensation with curiosity, you're welcome to do that. And then there's these active ways of opening your body that I think are really skillful to do. And so this is a practice. So we're playing with this. If you know my work, I really use that word intentionally, that word play. And so first step, recognize, release through the body. That's the key, okay? That's a really important key. So another thing I want to talk about is these three. Does that make sense to everyone? That makes sense to you? Anxiety and fear is a physiological reaction, right? It's conditioned. You don't think like, wow, I think I'm really afraid, and then you start getting really afraid. The fear comes. It's automatic, right? It happens in more subcortical layers of your brain, and then you're physiologically aroused. And so we have to work with the body to send those signals back there. We don't try and think about it to say like, well, from a really anxious place, what should I do right now? Like, how should I plan? Like, what are the catastrophes I should be planning for? Your brain's going to do that for you anyway. What we want to do is go straight to our body. We want to kind of almost disconnect from our thinking for a little bit and kind of go straight to this. It's just physical. It's like you're wounded in that moment. Your body's inflamed. It's like you got burned on your arm. And you want to go, and the first thing you want to do is inspect the arm and be able to put it under cool water and put the salve on top of it and bandage it. It's physiological. That's the first thing we want to kind of do. Dancing, I love that, Ramnik. Dancing, absolutely. On all the retreats that I used to lead, when we could get together in person, and I promise you that will happen again, dancing is certainly something that we weave into it because it's an experience of freedom and an absolute antidepressant, anti-anxiety. Dance while no one's looking type of thing, right? Okay. So this is just like some of the stuff that's within this, just like a tip of what's in this 21-day program, but just on its own, it can be really powerful for you, just this. So I want to talk to you about something else, which is really, really important because it happens unconsciously, and it really adds to the anxious loop, and it happens automatically, and you'll be totally caught off guard, and you may not even notice it's happening. So here's 3 common mind traps, and there's more, by the way, but here's 3 common ones. We have this group in the Mindful Living Collective called the Inner Core, and we are going over some other mind traps today. And we get together in the early part of the week and in the later part of the week, and we really kind of have meaningful conversations and circles around like really important stuff about living well. In this case, it's about finding our way back to center. And so these 3 common mind traps are important because wherever your brain focuses, have you noticed this? Think about this for a second. Wherever your brain focuses, it tends to arouse a certain energy, which then tends to influence where you're going to pay attention in the next moment. So whatever you're focusing on is going to arouse a certain energy that's then going to influence what you're focusing on. And that's another type of loop that's happening. And so wherever your focus goes, this energy tends to flow, and that influences our focus. Some people say, and then that's how our brain grows. You have this idea that neurons that fire together wire together. So this weaves in from what we were just talking about, and it kind of builds on this. Now, I mentioned to you before the idea that thoughts aren't facts, even the ones that tell us they are. And there's an experience that I'm going to talk about this experience, and you may have gone through something like this before if you've been on other retreats with me or webinars with me or something like that. But consider this for a second. Consider for a second that you are walking down a familiar street. And just, you can even kind of imagine this in your mind for a second. Humor me for a second. If you're out like kind of typing on some emails or something like that, like kind of pause for a minute and come back. Multitasking kind of adds to our anxiety. So if you're driving right now, just continue driving. But imagine you're walking down a street. Imagine the foliage around you and the buildings around you. Imagining this is maybe a time where there's no masks quite yet. As you're walking down the street, in the distance, you notice somebody walking towards you. And as they get a little closer, you notice they're a friendly acquaintance. And as they get even closer, you smile and you wave. And they just look at you and walk on by. They just look at you and walk on by. What are you thinking? What are you thinking right now? So go ahead. I want you to comment in, what you're thinking. I noticed Natalie as like what you're thinking about what in that moment. What happened when they looked at you and walked on by? What thought did you have? How did you feel? I noticed Natalie wrote water activities are helpful, shower, swimming, etc. So let me just, while everyone's typing in here, let me just make a little note here. We're talking about these foundations, right, of overcoming anxiety naturally. It goes without saying that exercise and good sleep, which is hard to come by when we're feeling anxious, diet, the food we eat, and the food we eat all are other really strong foundations for working with anxiety naturally and doing an inquiry into, am I moving my body regularly? That's really, really important as a natural anxiety relief. Am I eating refined sugar foods constantly, or like loading up on carbs so that I spike up and I crash down, which makes me more susceptible to feeling anxious? Looking at the foods we're eating. And then like, what can I do to find more rest? What can I do to find more rest if we're not getting good sleep? And that's a whole nother talk I have. And I do a whole workshop on insomnia that and sleep within the 20-day program. I give access to this other workshop in that. So it's a whole nother hour entirely. But so here we go. I'm thinking, what the jerk? WTF, rejected. They didn't recognize me. Are they mad? What did I do? Hurt? What the hell? Maybe it's someone else and I was mistaken, or maybe they didn't see me wave. See, that's very different than what a jerk, what the hell. I'm not that any are good or bad. I'm just noticing the differences. What did I do wrong to upset them? What did I do wrong? What's wrong? What happened? I would think, what's up with her? Did I do something? What did I do to make them angry at me? They don't want to be my friend. Did I do something wrong? Felt ignored. So we're getting a lot of, did I do something wrong? What did I do? Rejection, invisible, ignored. We got a couple people saying, what's wrong with them? Or is there something going on with them right now? Colleen said, I thought to myself, I'm not in Mexico where my experience is. People say hello to everyone who walks by. My second thought was, what is their problem? I would feel sad and a little disconnected. I'm anxious they didn't respond. Wonder if I did something wrong. Is something wrong with them? So on the one hand, you get, did I do something wrong? And someone else says, what's wrong with them? Oh my goodness, I have a facial recognition thing and this actually happens to me. I think it's someone I know, but it isn't. And so then I just feel really bad. Okay. I would feel hurt, confused, embarrassed. I'm not cool enough for them. I'm not cool enough for them. I'm thinking, why are they upset with me? Yeah, why are they upset with me and needed this? Isn't that interesting? So I gave everyone the exact same event. Someone's walking down the street, they look at you and walk on by. All these different interpretations. If I was walking down the street and I was holding up a glass of water and I said, what's this glass of water? Everyone would say, hey, that's a glass of water. But facts are things that are generally agreed upon by most people. And then, so you might say like, well, hold on a second. That's not cool. Well, we were all thinking about different people. So, how could you say that? And I'll guarantee you, and you know this in your own DNA and bones, that if you're not feeling well and you walk down that street and this same thing happens, and you'll have one interpretation. And if you're feeling great, something has happened, the pandemic was lifted, you got to hug and be with everyone again, and this happened or whatever, that or you just came into millions and millions and millions of dollars, if that matters to you, then it would be like, oh well, or what's wrong with that person? Maybe something's going on with that person. You'd have a totally different interpretation, most likely. So our emotions really influence our perception, our thoughts. So where we focus then influences the energy that's there. But we know that thoughts aren't facts. We know that. So that's the first common mind trap that we have to do. So what's the antidote to that? We have to learn to recognize the common thoughts that we have. So that goes back to this. And we have to learn how to hold them lightly. We have to learn how to name them. After we come to our bodies, we can notice the thought that was there, and we can name it. We can even write it out on a piece of paper. Write it out and say, and we can kind of begin to work with it. After we come back a little bit more back to center, we can work with these thoughts. Don't work with the thoughts when you're really inside the anxious loop. Wait till you're outside of it. We'll get to that in a minute. A second mind trap is this idea that something's wrong with me. I'm feeling really anxious. So something's really wrong with me. Now, on the one hand, you might say like, well, was I physically checked out? Was I physically checked out? Did I go to the doctor and they said like everything's okay, meaning like I don't have a hyperthyroidism or something like that, right? We always want to get checked out to make sure there's nothing physiological going on that's adding to our anxiety and fear, because that's always a possibility. So that's the first thing that we want to check out. But if not, then we have to say like something is wrong with me. So the more I feed myself this idea that something's wrong with me, the more shame I feel. And shame is recorded in the same area of the brain as our stress responses. And so it's like we're pouring stress upon stress. Something is wrong with me. In the movie Inside Out, that's how the sadness felt. Something is wrong with me. It wasn't until Joy saw that sadness actually was able to, through the sadness, was able to create connection, and make someone feel better, that she saw the value of sadness. Underneath anxiety is sometimes sadness. There's sometimes just grief there. Once we like kind of move past that, and there's sometimes this fear of not belonging, that's there too. So something is wrong with me. Something is wrong with me. Thought, emotion, shame, sensation, heaviness, or fear. I better get this right. Something happens. Action, behavior. Maybe you need to kind of scroll more on the news a little bit more. Maybe I need to kind of eat that bag of potato chips to feel better, that whole whatever it is, right? We get into these bad habits that keep us in this loop. So this is the second mind trap. I'll get to the antidote in a minute. The third common mind trap that's there is I can't handle it. Anyone recognize this one for you? I can't handle it. This doubt. Go ahead and say yes if this is something that you recognize within yourself, or any of these really. I can't handle it. Maybe this person can handle it. Look at them. They're so great, but not me. I can't handle it. Right? This doubt creeps in. And this doubt, if your focus is on the fact that you can't handle it, you're going to arouse this energy of fear. So what do we need to do? We need to learn to hold this a little bit lightly. Notice, what are my common mind traps? Is it that I'm really believing all the thoughts that come into my mind? Is it that something is wrong with me? If something is wrong with me, is that I can't handle it? Is this doubt arising? Doubt gets in the way of so many things. Doubt can be healthy, but oftentimes it kind of holds us back. So we can check it out. So we want to hold it lightly. We want to come to our bodies, and we want to recognize for a moment that I need to refocus now. So what have we done here? I'm going to bring us full circle for a second. We've recognized, right? That's this anxious loop. I'm recognizing I'm in this loop right now. I'm recognizing how my body's feeling right now. I'm aware of what's happening. So first step is awareness. Now I've stepped in this space between stimulus and response. I've just broken it down to make it a little bit easier about when it comes to anxiety, thoughts, emotions, sensations, and behaviors. When we recognize it, we step out of it. We're no longer in it. We're stepping out of it so we can relate to it. There's a little bit more space between the stimulus and response in that moment. Sometimes it's a little blurred. It's like we're kind of in both places, but we're kind of moving a little bit more in this direction. The more we kind of come to our body and begin to open up our body a little bit, we're starting to release now. We're starting to release. I gave us a number of examples of ways of releasing. Then what we want to do is start to move all these mind traps that are part of the recognizing, right? Then then we're going to want to move to refocusing. So I'm really breaking down these 3 R's right now. You may have heard me talk about these 3 R's in like a 3-minute video, a 5-minute video. I'm really breaking it down, fleshing it out here in a much bigger way. So powerful. Recognize, release, refocus. So what's the refocus now? So refocus is we're refocusing our attention so that we can create a new energy that's there. But we can only do that once we've kind of come down and stepped into that space and begin to do this shift. And the way we come down is through this release function, right? The refocus is now saying, okay, let me look at this thought. So I can't handle it. Is that true? I love working with Byron Katie's 4 questions. Or I kind of do a little bit of an adaptation from it. We really integrate these, in one of the days within the 21-day program. But we say, is it true? Do I know it to be absolutely true? Am I sure about this, that I can't handle this? Is that a fact? Would everyone say this about me? Has this happened in 100% of the situations? That's what a fact is. So, well, I can't say it's absolutely true. But how does it make me feel, this doubt? Oh, it really makes me feel kind of shamed and worried and fearful. What does it make me want to do? It makes me want to look for more news, or it makes me want to check out, or it makes me want to fall into XYZ bad habits. Some people ask that question and they say, it makes me really want to exercise. I'm like, oh, that's great. That's good for you. But for a lot of people, we go more into the kind of bad habits for soothing, right? So we kind of really get a sense of really objectifying this experience that's here. And then once we're in that, we've widened that space a little bit more between stimulus and response. The perspective is really growing right now. And then I said, what would it be like if this thought wasn't here? Since it's not a fact anyway, can I even imagine what would be different if this thought wasn't here? How would I feel? What would it make me want to do? Consider that for a second. With these mind traps you have, or these self-critical thoughts that you have, or these anxious thoughts that you have. Consider those questions for a moment. Is it true? Do I know it to be absolutely true? Opening the door a little bit by realizing that you don't know it to be absolutely true. How does it make me feel? So I'm objectifying a little bit more, and see if you can feel it for a moment. Yeah, it makes me feel really sad or anxious, or what does it make me want to do? And what do I typically do? Oh, maybe I worry about it more. Maybe it makes me want to worry more. Maybe that's what I want to do. What would be different if that thought wasn't here? So then you can play with flipping it too. I call this encouraging positive thoughts. And we say the opposite. Well, I'm safe. I'm actually quite safe right now. Is that true? I don't think so. I don't feel like it is. So there's the truthy thought coming up. But is it possible that it's true? Yeah, it's possible that I'm safe, I guess, right now in my home, whatever this place. If every cell of my body believed that thought, how would it make me feel? Because I'd feel pretty good. I'd feel more at ease. And what would it make me want to do? I guess I'd be more free to do X, Y, Z, this and that, whatever it would be. And then can I allow myself to just let the neurons fire into that imagination for a moment and let myself feel how it would feel just being with that. So we can kind of play with that. This is a way of releasing. Taking a deep breath, making a sound is another way of releasing. The very first meditation we play with in the 21-day program, because in the 21-day program, what we do is we have a simple practice that comes out every day. That if you work with this very simple practice, it almost doesn't take any extra time out of your day. It's some things that you can just weave into it. Sometimes it's a mindset, and they're all videos that are explaining it. And then, but there's also a meditation I want you to play with for the week. And the very first one is one that some of you might be familiar with that's called Relax and Retune. And you get 10, 20, and 30-minute options for this. The idea is to play with this idea of releasing. I want you to get practiced at it. Practice and repeat it. That's how we create a habit. Practice and repetition, right? And so we're kind of practicing it. We're playing with it. We're getting access to different layers of it. And so we're practicing this releasing. And then in that space, another thing that's important with the release and the refocus is, so we're refocusing on this other question, like, well, the flip side of that, but we're also refocusing on the question, which is the epicenter of self-compassion, which would be, if you could just get that out of this practice of strengthening of self-compassion, which is a complete opposite to anxiety, opposite. Is this, what do I need right now? You have to have the wherewithal to be able to ask that question. And with practice and repetition, it's top of mind, top of mind, top of mind. It becomes more retrievable. It becomes more retrievable. And before you know it, what's happening is you feel like you're retrieving it more. It's coming to your mind more. Even the beginning of a panic attack, it's more likely to be retrieved of what you're actually needing because you've had practice with it over time. So with a little patience, we get some practice and repetition, with that over time. So what do I need right now? And so those are some keys. I really hope that you kind of soaked that in and took it in, maybe took some notes, around these particular things. So, just to review, now in this time, this pandemic, it's not a time to retract and feed your fear. That's not what this time is about, and doesn't help us, and it doesn't serve anybody to do that. It doesn't serve you, doesn't serve the people you love and care about, doesn't serve anybody. It's a time really to really allow and invite growth. It's an opportunity for that. And we grow by supporting each other. We grow by that connection, and that's why that's why I put all my programs within the Mindful Living Collective, whatever program it is, because I know that it's the best community I've ever found of encouraging and supportive and insightful people that all kind of live there and spend time there, and that's when a program is in there, like the 21-day program. We're going through the 21-day program, and all those people are also there, and we're kind of working with this stuff with each other and getting encouragement, support, and insight. So just to review, first thing we want to do is there's this anxious loop. It's conditioned, right? Thoughts, emotions, sensations, behaviors. We want to move outside of that loop. The way we move from the inside of that loop to the outside of that loop is by naming it, by recognizing that. And one of the practices to do that is to really journal out these areas of the anxious loop for yourself. So you're really objectifying them and you're bringing it top of mind, so you're able to recognize it more in your daily life. I want to step into that space between stimulus and response, where choice, possibility, and freedom lie. The second thing is we want to work on then releasing. We release through our body. We release through noticing where we're bracing, we're softening, we're doing a big exhale, we're doing some deep breathing. We're, even with the beginning of anything, just breathing in and going, what's happening? I'm opening up my vocal cords. So I'm opening, I'm shaking, I'm dancing, as some people said here. So beautiful. I love these suggestions. This is the power of the community here. And we're doing these particular things, right? That's what we're doing, releasing. And then we can work on, with the relax and retune practice, we can work on releasing the busyness of the mind, releasing the self-critical thoughts and become aware of it, just letting them flow out with the breath. Practice and repetition. This is how we kind of build the natural, overcoming anxiety naturally, we build that habit. And then the third thing is we want to work on refocusing. What do we refocus on? Refocus on doing an inquiry around the worries and the thoughts, maybe, if we have the wherewithal to do that. And we can work with that with those 4 questions. Or we can do the inquiry about, what am I actually needing right now? I oftentimes use this metaphor, like the soup. I'm like a soup. The soup tastes really bitter right now. It's off right now. And so what do I need? What does this soup need in order to get sweet and feel more balanced? What am I needing right now? Am I needing to go outside and take a walk? Am I needing to connect with someone in whatever way I can connect with them, because I'm focusing what I can do instead of what I can't do? What am I needing right now deeply? Am I needing to go into a meditation? Am I needing some yoga? Am I needing to stretch and move my body? What am I needing? Am I needing to look at the way I'm eating? Am I needing to shift my sleep habits? All real natural anti-anxieties. Again, eating, exercise, sleep. Again, a whole nother thing on insomnia that we can talk about, and that's in the I linked to that. I put that video within the 21-day program. And so there it is. So I keep it really simple for you. Recognize, release, refocus, in that way. And this is just the beginning, right? If you want to take this really one step further, that 21-day program just opened up. It's simple things every day for you to do, and we do it together. And every week you get a curated meditation practice just for me, specifically for me, and you have the whole thing for life. And it's completely guaranteed. So I'd love you to take advantage of that, because I'm in there anyway. But I want to get to some questions, because I notice I'm aware of our time as well. Let me put that in here, by the way, just so you have the link to that. And by the way, coming into that program now, just so you know, that's when a lot of people are going to be coming into it. So you're getting the support and encouragement of other people while you're doing that. So we'll kind of use this, what we've done today, as a foundation for launching into the next 21 days together. And I can't wait to see the changes that actually occur and what happens and the questions and insights that arise over the next 21 days with everyone. And by the way, a program like this typically costs like $97 or $149, something like that for me. And I've made it $37 for now anyway, because I just want everyone who needs it to be able to access it. I want to take away the financial barrier entirely and allow you to really access that while making sure you're also investing something in yourself, that it's like you're saying, like, I'm going to put something in the ground to actually invest in myself to do that, so you're more accountable to yourself for it. So really making it accessible entirely, to everyone. So I really hope you take advantage of that. But so first question, how do I deal with automatic body response? How do I deal with automatic body response to a trigger? My mind is calm, but my sympathetic nervous system is triggered. So both Ava and Pamela brought this up. So I think in some ways we've kind of covered this. I just want to kind of bring it back. A trigger happens. That could be something on the outside. It could be a time of day, could be a location, could be a person, it could be a piece of news. It could be a sensation in your body. It could be something like that triggers a worry. And then that triggers, then you're caught in that anxious loop. So you have to know first to name it, that I'm caught in this anxious loop, right? Name it, anxious loop, anxious loop, anxious loop. Say it 3 times out loud to yourself. And then recognize this is just me and my body now. And my body's inflamed right now. It's almost like you can imagine there's inflammation kind of happening. Okay, so I'm big burning. There's a burning happening. So what do I need to do to soothe? So I recognize it. I need to work on releasing just physically. I just need to, this is for the next 20 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, hour, it's just about releasing for me. So where's the tension in my body? Where's the holding? And I just need to be working on releasing. Take some deep breaths, make some sounds as you're exhaling. It's just physiological. Release physiologically in different ways that can be supportive to you. Whether that's the bouncing and the shaking, or whether that is the stretching and moving, or whether you can do that with your mind sometimes. We can soften. So that's what we want to do, is work on it physically with our body. And that's the foundation. Then there's things we can do every day that are small things, different mindsets we can weave in, and things that we can do that can help kind of build on each other, simple things. And that's what we do over the next 21 days together. Okay, how much anxiety is normal? The feeling of high alert status present for me most of the time, heart palpitations, tightness in upper chest. Is there such a thing as non-pathological anxiety, and what does it look like? So first thing I'd always say is, like, make sure you get checked out by your physician, of course, to make sure that he or she says, like, okay, it's nothing physiological with you. This is just anxiety, or this is just like your body doing its thing, or whatever. That's what we want to check out first. And if not, then there is anxiety there. Your nervous system is amplifying. It's going into a fight, flight, freeze response. And if you really check it out, I would bet, and I welcome you to let me know about this after you check it out. I would bet that it's not the same all the time. It's not on high alert most of the time. I'd almost want you to take a journal of it, and journal on a scale of 1 to 10 throughout the day, on the hour maybe. Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, where is it? So you can get an accurate description of factually of what it actually looks like. And maybe you've done this before. And then we want to work on really kind of making it a life practice for you to soothe your body, soften your body, and take care of your body if it's in that heightened state of alert. Think of it physiologically, nothing to worry about. You already know what you need to do. You need to recognize, release, refocus. And this is practice of releasing and soothing. And the refocusing sometimes is back on the soothing. And if it's making you kind of think, in catastrophic ways, or in ways that are amplifying it, then we want to come to our body. Then some of the refocus could be on the inquiry around, is this thought even true? What I'm saying? And another, by the way, another natural anxiety that we really kind of dig into a little bit later on in the 21-day program is gratitude. Like, there is a reality to gratitude because there's a focus on it. When you focus on it, after you do some of the stuff we've talked about, link it into your life, think what you're doing. You're focusing on something which creates a different energy. It's an anti-anxiety energy that's there. And so we're working with it. Sometimes both can kind of be there, right? You don't need to it doesn't need to be just one or the other. Sometimes both can be there, and we work with that. Can we just let it be? The course begins right now. Thank you for asking that, Betsy. You can go in right now. You can actually go in right now. The 21-day program is totally open. Just opened. There's the link to it. I'm linking it there. And you can jump in there like today, and we can start we can be on this kind of journey together over the next 21 days. Again, typically this is a more expensive thing, to be able to put this to create this entire program and offer it up. But I wanted to kind of take that away, but still make sure there's some investment. So we brought it down from like what could have been a $97 or $149 program and made it a $37 program. So you can just get in, and you'll notice at the bottom of the page when you get there that there's an opportunity to even gift it to somebody, because there might be friends and family and other people that that could really benefit from moving through a program like this over 21 days. And again, I'll take what we did here and I'm going to put it in the front of the program just as something that you can review and, to resource what we've done here as you move through these 21 days. But definitely take advantage of it. Ava Marie said, does what we eat affect us becoming more anxious? Absolutely. If we're eating a lot of refined sugars, or we're eating, and I'm not a nutritionist, but I just know this much. And maybe what I'll do in the 21-day program is I'll get a friend of mine who's a leading nutritionist. I don't have this in there right now, but I think I'll get her to do this, and we'll put it in the 21-day program just as like a bonus, something extra to really pay attention to. I'll get her to give a whole kind of like masterclass talk on the connection between eating and diet and anxiety, just so you can have a general understanding of that. And I'll make sure that that's in there before these next 21 days are done, so you have access to that. Consider that just actually, that's why I love this community so much, because we really learn from each other. And what your question, Ava Marie spawned that possibility to even happen. So wonderful. So I'm going to make a note of that, to get that in there as just like a bonus, so you make sure that you have that, as I go through there. Okay. So anyway, yeah, when you eat a lot of sugars or drink a lot of caffeine, or you're drinking a lot of alcohol or something like that, and everyone's body is different, so everyone's body needs different types of foods and nutrients. And so we're kind of bringing a sense of mindfulness to it to check it out for ourselves. But typically, if we eat a lot of refined sugars, then what happens is it spikes us up, and then what comes up comes down, and we crash down. We can get tired and lethargic, which can make us susceptible to these other emotional reactions that are there, like anxiety or anger and irritation, things like that, from the tiredness that's there. Or like a lot of regular alcohol consumption after a certain degree can weigh us down. But check it out for yourself. Everyone's different, of course, and but you want to see that there is a link between our food, the food that we take in, and our emotional state, for sure, and exercise or lack of that. And by the way, meditation has been absolutely shown to be a source of renewable energy for us and a source of anti-anxiety. And so just consider those things, like food, exercise, sleep, and diet are 4 fundamentals, that are there. Sleep, food, food, food and diet. Sorry, food, exercise, sleep, and meditation. Okay. How to manage complex PTSD fear added to the pandemic fear. Yeah, that's even a larger question than we can kind of get into right now, because with PTSD, what's happening is, or if you have a long history with deep anxiety, what's happening is your nervous system's already like hot coals, and it's on the lookout for anything. It's hypersensitive to anything that might be related to fear in any way, and it's more likely that this anxious loop is going to you're just more susceptible to the anxious loop getting triggered. Basically, that's kind of what's happening. And so your work in some ways is to get better and better at recognizing the loop when it's happening, to be able to get outside of it and dive down deep into what you're actually needing, what your nervous system is needing, and go at that with a sense of commitment and almost fierce attention, to be able to recognize, like, this loop is happening right now. I got to get really clear on what my needs are generally so I can have them top of mind. And I got to use that as a committed practice to kind of keep diving down into those needs when I notice my nervous system on fire. And of course, individual therapy and being in groups can be enormously supportive. And groups right now are, of course, online and Zoom, but we're noticing a tremendous amount of strength, encouragement, and support that's coming out of the inner core right now, within the collective too. Tips for dealing with panic attacks and disorders, struggling with a lot. Yeah. So that's very similar to the PTSD question. I only say that because with panic attacks and panic disorder, and this is not therapy right now, but it is as if your nervous system is inflamed, meaning like it's hypersensitive to triggers and cues that are there. And all we want to do, and I want to kind of share with you something that I shared earlier today with the inner core group, which is this idea that we can't control the panic attack we're not choosing it to come, right? But I used to deal with panic attacks and work with panic attacks, and I'll tell you that my understanding of the neuroscience behind it, meaning that really what's happening is that you can't pay attention to the worries and be embodied and attentive to what's actually happening in the present moment at the exact same time. There's an inverse relationship. When one comes up, the other one begins to come down. And I understood that, and I began to trust it. And I understood that if I can just stay with my body and my breath, if I can just stay with something in this moment, if I can just stay with it, and when it goes off, I'm going to continue to bring myself back, then I can cool down the panic because it's being fueled by my thoughts and worries. So I just have to trust, even though there's a lot of truthiness in that moment. The truth, what I mean is that your mind is telling you need to pay attention to this panic and really get rid of it. And like, something terrible is going to happen and this type of stuff. But the reality is, it's just this moment. It's just this breath. It's just this body. If I can stay with it, it's going to come and it's going to peak and it's going to pass away. And it's going to pass away sooner if I can just stay with this right now. If I can just watch it, it always comes and goes, and it comes and goes sooner when I tend to something in the moment. And so that's why I bring us back to our body, softening our body, and just being in our body and taking breaths to deeply exhale, but just noticing that as I do that, I'm not paying attention to the worries as much, but I'm paying attention to what's actually here in this moment, my body, this breath. And then it'll start passing away sooner, and you'll start to gain confidence and trust in yourself. That like, I know what to do and I know what works, even though my mind tells me that this isn't going to work. I know what works. It's just telling me some truthy lie because it's worried about, it's meant to survive. That's its programming. I want to be at peace and be happy. It's different programming. And so I'm going to focus in the direction that's going to bring more peace and ease and happiness. And that's if I just stay here, it'll help me with that. I hope that's helpful. We play with it and we trust. I know you're in the Mindful Living Collective, and so we'll continue to work on that. How can I support loved ones who struggle with anxiety? Well, I'll say this, Jess. If you want to share with them the 21-day program, you don't have to share it even. At the bottom of that page, there's a link, and you can actually gift it with like a note to them and everything, and it gets like sent to them, which is super cool. I thought it was anyway. New technology that I thought was kind of super cool. And so, please feel free to do that. Gift it. Again, I made it so affordable, at least in my mind, compared to what it could be, in order for like that kind of thing to happen so that it can spread and we can create ripple effects with it. And, there's not a barrier to someone saying, well, I can't afford this thing, or I can't, it's like we can and we can even kind of gift it to people because of the economy of it, because it should be meant to support people and help people right now. And that's why we made it so affordable. So helping children manage their anxiety. Yeah, you know what? It's so interesting. My children, of course, in one breath, will tell you how much they hate mindfulness because, of course, it takes their dad and their mom away, at times. Not anymore, really, because of the pandemic. But and in the same breath, they ask for the body scan like every night. And I get a call from my friend who I haven't talked to in 20 years, and he said, "You know what? I just was on an app, and I was playing this meditation for my daughter at bedtime because she said it helps her sleep, and I realized that was you. That was your body scan or something like that." So that was kind of a kick. But sometimes just like with kids, you want to be really playful. And I know Jess, pretty sure if this is the Jess that's in the collective, I know that you're in parenting and education, and so we want to kind of make it playful. There's so many resources through Mindful Schools and so many wonderful books that give ideas. I mean, one of my favorite things for littler kids is to introduce them to mindfulness, to manage their work with their anxiety through books, because they're going to read stories anyway. And there's so many good books out there now. And Buddha at bedtime, and like there's so many that are so wonderful. So like that gets them to kind of get the ideas in a sneaky sort of way through kind of reading in books. And then you can have an inquiry with them like, what's that? I know you feel anxious sometimes. Anything in this story like relate to that? Or you notice how this character felt a little anxious? Like this is kind of what they did. So we're kind of planting seeds. And the thing with kids is to remember is that we're planting seeds. And we're doing it with adults too. Planting seeds. And then, at some point, the seeds begin to grow. My wife and I used to run a group called CALM, Connecting Adolescents to Learning Mindfulness. And one of the kids who came in was very resistant to being in there. And he was about 16. And then we came to learn 2 years later, he was started a mindfulness club at his school. So we're planting seeds. So I hope this was helpful. And again, I'm going to put this in the 21-day program at the top so you can keep reviewing it. And to kind of get this out of it as you go through those 21 days, if you choose to do that. And Absolutely my pleasure. It's my favorite thing to do to be here with you, and we'll continue connecting in different ways. There's so many different opportunities and so many things coming up that will provide even more opportunities for our connection and continued learning and growth. And otherwise, I really look forward to being with you in this program. I hope you choose to jump in. I truly believe in my heart that over these next 21 days, that you'll find some real benefit in these kind of small ways every day of working with this. And if you do the meditations within too, and then you have this for life anyway, so you can continue coming back and reviewing it. I'll do one last pop of this in here because I know that this kind of gets lost, just to make it easy for you. Oh, I can also just put it here. I should have just done that the whole time. Or not the whole time, but towards the end as we're doing this. So thank you, everyone. Any final questions? You know what? I'll stick around for another minute if I see any final questions. If you had a question that you asked earlier, it might have gotten lost in the feed. And so go ahead and pop it in again. And I'll take just a little extra time just to answer anything that you might have. This is going to be a tremendous 21 days. I really look forward to engaging with you. And again, I'll get someone who's really a leader in the field of kind of diet and mental health, and I'll have her do a little short masterclass around food and anxiety, and kind of put it in there for you as well. Well, okay. Oh, Richard, the community hug? Well, absolutely. Okay, guys, speaking about getting embodied for a moment, we've done this in some of when does the program, or what time does the 21 program meet? Oh, it's live right now. It starts when you go in there. Every day you're going to get a new lesson will open, a new video lesson will open up for you. So we're all kind of in it. So you can go in there and actually get it right now if you want to. You can start the program anytime. That's right. Really excited to be in there with you. Talk to my TBI group from St. Jude's. You can, LA Music Sound, you can email me offline about that, and we can talk about that. Okay, beautiful. Let's see. What about the role of childhood conditioning, the programming, and how it affects our mind traps? Is the approach similar? So that's a great question, Paula. Anxiety can be both nature and nurture, meaning like it could be something that happened to you in your childhood. Again, I was just talking with the this magazine this morning about this, and it could be something from many generations ago. It didn't even happen in your lifetime, because our experience is getting coded in our genes, and then we pass them on. Now, whether that gets expressed or not depends on the person's life and the environment they have. That's a field called epigenetics. And so there is it is wise to have an understanding of where this comes from. And that's a whole nother thing about, if we're talking about like more psychodynamic therapy type of work, of understanding your childhood and healing the inner child. That can be enormously supportive. I think in this case, what we're talking about is we're talking about it more from a physiological perspective. We're talking about it more from a conditioned reaction that could be coming from your childhood, but it's a conditioning. And you're working on feeling a greater sense of personal control over that conditioning that's happening, understanding it better, and feeling a sense of personal control from it, and also feeling a greater sense of love for yourself as a result of it. And then while you're doing that, you may recognize and do some inquiry into your childhood, or maybe into the generations before you that might have had some trauma there, and do some personal work around relating to that child or that part of your history in a way that creates a sense of healing. And that could be tremendously powerful. So that's good. That's beyond the scope of this at the moment. But I will say that we're working with this first, and that's a different part of work that's worth doing inquiry around. Should we do this concurrent with? You could, Pamela. Yeah, it's simple. You could integrate it with that, absolutely. No, you could definitely integrate it. Let's see, anything else that's coming from anyone? I hadn't used those letters on their own before. That's why I thought she's talking about a program called Find Your Way Back to Center. That's a program that's going on right now. Can I start the program anytime? Absolutely. Community hug. Back to Richard Gannon. Okay. So for those of you who are here, still have a couple hundred people here. And so this is really powerful. Back to getting embodied and feeling a sense of connection. And I want you to just, if you can, take a leap with this if you haven't done this before. Just take a leap for a moment and humor us all and entertain this for a moment. So I want you to take a deep breath, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a hug. Now, you might have a phone, you might have a computer, but I want you to move towards that in a moment and wrap your arms around it as if you were giving us all a hug. So we are all wrapped around in a circle together with our arms around each other, a couple hundred people around the world right now, arms around each other, all wanting the same thing, to feel cared about, to feel understood, to find a natural release of overcoming anxiety naturally, and feel the hug. Okay? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're bringing it in. So just take a moment with this and feel a couple hundred people around the world. Feel the embrace. Feel the connection. Feel the love just for a moment. Okay. Thank you for that prompt, Richard. May we all find more natural relief the days and weeks and months ahead. May we all find that great sense of personal control that's in us, and we build the sense that no matter what comes my way, I'm going to be okay, and find our way to greater peace in our lives and for those who we love and for those around the world. Okay, we'll come together again. Bye for now.